When we talk about games and developers out there that took a lot of real chances with their games and IPs, one of those, in my opinion, really close to the top of the list is God of War and what Sony Santa Monica decided to do with this game, kind of going away from the traditions of God of War, which was already a massive franchise as a whole, and kind of taking a new, almost approach to God of War when it was released. And what I got to say, guys, is I love that they took this risk and it really paid off for them. What I will say, though, is moving into God of War 2 or whatever the next God of War game is called, which we all know is being worked on at this point in time, there are certainly some things that I would like to see come back. There's certainly some things that I would like changed. So in this segment of the show, I want to talk about the top 5 things that we want in God of War 2, and I would love to hear your guys' thoughts about this in the comment section down below, whether you agree or disagree with my opinions here. So let's get into it. So coming in, guys, at number 1 for me, I really want God of War 2, or whatever this God of War is called. We're going to call it God of War 2 at this point in time, but I really want to see God of War 2 continue right where God of War 1 left off for us. I want to see a direct continuation moving forward, even if it's like a few months or a year after the events of God of War 1. I really want to see a direct continuation. I think that where they were going, especially with some of the cliffhangers that they left us on in God of War 1, I really think that leading us into this game, kind of continuing right where it left off, would really it would keep us in line with where they're trying to go and kind of tell us this story from a narrative perspective. So I really want them to continue right where they left off in God of War 1. That leads me to number 2, which, guys, my biggest complaint with God of War 1 was some of the environments. Now look, the landscapes and such were beautiful. When we were playing this game, the graphics were incredible. However, one of my biggest complaints about the game was that it just didn't feel like there was a lot of variety as far as the environments are concerned. It felt like a lot of, snowy elements. You're in the mountains a lot, and so it was like it felt like a lot of snow, a lot of like cold environments throughout the course of the game. Sure, they had a little bit of some variety, but I would really want more variety here in God of War 2. Lots of variety where you're going through, tropical rainforests and just all different places throughout the course of the world. What it does for me, at least, is I'm able to explore more and learn more about this world that we're in. In God of War 1, it felt more boxed in where there wasn't as much, even though there was ways that you could explore and such. It just kind of felt that, it felt like you were in the same place consistently throughout the course of the game. I just want there to be more variety here in God of War 2. And, I think that kind of leads you to even more, further exploration of those areas and having just different things that you can do along the journey. That leads me, guys, into number 3, which I think one of the big things with these games that's going to be important is we have familiarity, that being like, current characters that are coming back, some, enemies that are coming back, bosses, weapons, things of that nature come back that look familiar to us from God of War. But I think it's going to be really important that there are new characters, new enemies, of course, the new environments, new bosses, new weapons that you get at your disposal. Continuing to evolve from what, they left off with God of War 1. Here with God of War 2, I want to see some similarities to the first one, but I also want to see some significant differences that kind of move the story and the way that we traverse the world moving forward. And that gets me, guys, to number 4. My second biggest complaint about God of War 1 was outside of not having a ton of variety in the environments. One of my biggest, issues was after you're done beating the game, there's nothing else to really do after you beat the game, right? I played the game 2 times through, and the second time, my second playthrough, I went ahead and looked for a bunch of different collectibles and such that I didn't get the first time. But what I'm getting at is that I really want there to be some form of multiplayer and some form of co-op where you're able to play with your friends after you're done being the campaign, whether we're talking from a PvE perspective, even PvP. I think this game has a lot of like customization options and such as you kind of go through the course of the story. You're able to upgrade things and there's a lot of skill trees and such. So I think that this is primed for something like a PvE where you're going up against waves and waves of enemies with your friends, or playing against other people out there in the world. I think it's really important that we continue to see the evolution here, because even though that God of War sold really well, I think that what would help it sell even better with God of War 2 is having multiplayer and more ways that you can come back to the game and play, and just more ways that you can continue to connect with this franchise and the lore, the story. All of that is really important, guys. Whether you're playing the story, multiplayer, co-op, having a full package, guys, also really it justifies the $60 price tag. That leads me, guys, to number 5, which I kind of alluded to this earlier, but I really want there to be, as we're traveling through the game, obviously, you know, it's great having, you know, these great, you know, landscapes and having, you know, different things that you can, as you're traveling, seeing a bunch of different places. But I think from God of War 1 to God of War 2, I'd like to have more things that we can do along the journey. That being, you know, a bunch of side quests. Even though they had side quests, what I'm getting at is having more things to do, having more people that you can come up to and talk to, learn more about the towns, the areas that you're in, the, you know, all kinds of history is really important. So even more ways that you can, as you're traveling through the story and the campaign as a whole, you are learning more as you go, from a standpoint of, you know, collectibles, but having just more things you can do along the journey that can further help you, you know, customize your character, or help you like learn more about this world that is like a living, breathing place. And so with that, guys, those are the 5 things that I really want to see in God of War 2 from God of War 1. And don't get me wrong, God of War 1 I thought was great. I thought overall, guys, I really enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy it as much as some people did. However, I will say it was the best God of War game I've ever played. So out of all the other ones that I've ever played, and, you know, with this new version or new take on God of War, I gotta say I like it the most. I just want them to kind of evolve it over time, because I really think that they've got something special here. And so these are what I would like to see in God of War 2. Let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys want to see in God of War 2? Let me know. And for more God of War 2 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV.